starting lineup of your favorite show. At producer, 5'11" from Blanchester, the Cow Killer, Casey McCollister. And comic engineer, standing at 4'8", the pride of the West Side, Elliot Rearing. And your host, weighing 150 pounds, soaking wet, from Hamilton, Ohio, Ace Fowler.
It was a late one. It was a late one last night. The Cincinnati Reds were, which included me and myself. And for those that did not stay up, you should be pleasantly surprised that it wasn't worth staying up for. But the day goes on. The show goes on. And this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We come your way every single day on YouTube from 10 to 12
P.
And if you're listening in Dayton, you're probably listening on Wing 1410 from 1
P.
There you go. 3
P.
So there we are. That's our show. That's when you can find us. And you can watch us all the time on Chatterbox Sports YouTube channel because, well, it saves and you can go back and watch it at your own convenience. For those that have DVR that maybe wake up early, perhaps that's how you consumed the Reds. It didn't take long, though, gentlemen. I know I'm not going to ruin too many headlines here, but it didn't take long for those that had DVR'd the Reds last night to realize they just weren't going to watch the rest of the game.
No, it was bad. It was bad from the jump. And I'd rather it be that way, if I'm going to be honest. If you're going to lose, just take us out early. I'd rather have one shot to the head than two to the chest and bleed out. So just do it quick.
I currently have a situation going on with my chair.
Yeah, I see that.
It won't go down. It only goes up. And now I'm in a situation where it requires a significant amount of force to even get it to move back. But all right, now I'm feeling good, better than ever. Right before I came on air, I took a drink of my water here, and somehow it went down the wrong pipe.
Oh, no.
I've been fighting this fight for the past 2 minutes of my life. It's just been a tough start, similar to Frankie Montas.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how you say his name, but we're going to try to figure it out.
Montas.
Yeah.
Montas,
Everything
Montas, Montas.
It's Montas, I think.
Yeah, everything he was tossing was going to the moon.
Yeah, that's right. You are right about
Nice
that. That was,
one, Casey.
that
That
was
was a good
tough.
one. Yeah, for those that didn't know, the Mariners they couldn't basically score any runs throughout the regular season of Major League Baseball. The only thing that was interesting though was it's only been 16 games. See, that's the thing is when you find yourself in a baseball season, there are situational awareness is what I think some would call it. You know, some people do have really bad situational awareness, and I give them some credit for it. You ever been in the middle of a grocery aisle? It's been a long time for me, but I've been in the middle of the grocery aisle before. You ever seen the people that have their cart and they're blocking traffic and they're just staring into the sun basically, just looking for their specific cereal on the top shelf. And they're just minding their own time, and then meanwhile, you look to the right, you look to the left, and there's like every bit of 8 people trying to get by. That is what I think sometimes people do with some statistical nature things that exist in sports. You know, they play 162 games.
A lot of games.
After 16 games, I don't know if we should continue to declare on the broadcast that the team that we're playing has a deficiency in any area. Now, certainly you can bring it up, but I don't think it's a shock to the system last night that the Mariners scored 9 runs. Casey, how many runs did they have before tonight?
They did not have – they had not eclipsed 50 yet.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
they're way over 50 at this point.
Yeah, they scored a fifth of their runs almost in one game throughout the other, what would have been 16 games prior.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Mariners. You know what, though? I'm going to say it out loud. I'm not all that concerned about it.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be at all. This is a classic overreaction game for some of us, but I'm going to try my best to be positive. Now, I'm going to mention a lot of the negatives, but we're going to try to be positive. I did mention last night on Twitter that the Reds have struggled notoriously, historically, when they travel to the West Coast, but Nick Kirby took out of context. He said, let's go just the most 2 recent seasons. Boom. And then I got ratioed. So thank you, Nick Kirby, for ratioing me when he knows in his heart and in his mind that the Reds have struggled going out west for a very long time. But I'm not going to hold a grudge because I don't do that. I don't hold grudges.
Yeah. What's a good analogy of that? That would be like the other day bragging about how the sun didn't come out at like 3 o'clock in the middle of the day, right?
Correct,
It'd
yeah.
be like, oh look, The sun's not out. It's 3:30 on the East Coast.
Very much. Much.
But the reality is, most of the time the sun's out.
Correct.
Is that what you're trying to suggest over there?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So, and I'm glad you did that. But speaking of the headlines, so I guess I'll recap some of the game for those on the radio who did not stay up all night long to watch it. The Reds did lose 9-3. Again, Casey mentioned it. The team has not scored 50 runs, who's not eclipsed 50 runs on the season. 9 runs last night. Frankie Montas, he looked completely lost. Looked out of it. 5 walks. He went 2 innings. 45 pitches he threw in the first inning, which, by the way, David Bell did say earlier on, 45 was his max. If any pitcher's throwing 45, he's yanking them. Well, Frankie said, I know what my number is, and I'm going to go all the way to it. He used all those pitches, 45 of them. Again, walked 5 guys, 3 hits, 5 earned runs. He only struck out a batter. Pretty much a waste of a start. But thank you very much, Frankie, for your service. Nick Martinez struggled as a starter in his 2 little starts, but Nick Martinez looked sharp last night. 4 innings, only gave up 1 earned run, struck out a batter. So shout out to Nick Martinez. Buck Farmer looked terrible. He went 2 innings, gave up 4 hits and 3 earned. I'm going to have, not to spoil the show, but I have a buy or sell regarding Buck Farmer.
Ooh.
Buck Farmer, and again, this is no disrespect to him, but he knows he's the forfeit guy, right? Like, he's the game when you put him in, they just quit. Like, that's what we do with Buck Farmer.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of the unfortunate nature of the beast. Sometimes when you're in Little League and you have to be a Little League manager.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to bat last, and somebody has to play the outfield, right field probably specifically sometimes. And you just know in the back of your mind and your heart of hearts that you know that kid knows they're just not as good as everybody else. And I think that's probably where Buck Farmer stands right now.
Mike Ackley is the reverse Dreamweaver. Yeah, he's just bad.
Hey, before you go any farther, we had I was thinking the other day, when you do these headlines, you do a very, very fantastic job. The only issue is that we have a mic situation where you're obviously utilizing your computer, but the microphone. It's just nowhere to be found. So
sometimes. Are you saying I'm too far away? So
well,
how about I try?
That's
fine. That's fine. This is the learning curve.
Well, I'm saying, is there a chance we maybe some had suggested maybe we get you like a mic stand like Casey's,
well, that would
where it would kind of like be able to extend over there and help you out.
That would certainly help. I will say this: I had to read every Saturday morning on a previous station.
Right.
I would do headlines. I'd recap headlines in sports.
Yeah.
And my mic in that specific studio would be like here. It would be that's going to be a tough Photoshop. Could
you tell me where that was at again?
No, I will not. That was a tough one. And if anybody screenshots that, you're no longer my friend. I knew it as soon as I did it. And now it's going to be hard to honestly continue. But anyway, my mic was up here. I'll say that. My mic was right around here, so I never had to worry about it. Obviously, I have to worry about it now. Nobody's allowed to screenshot that. In fact, I'm going to make sure that is deleted from the footage after this show. Continuing on with my little rant here, though. Let's talk in the mic. Elliott. Jonathan India, he continues to struggle at the plate. Just 2 hits over his last 8 games. I think he's 2 for 24 over his last 24 at-bats. 0 for 4 yesterday. He's hitting 182. Some good news, though. As Christian Encarnacion Strand staying hot. Couple of hits, couple of doubles yesterday. Could have had a 3rd hit. Was robbed at shortstop. So a good game. He looks okay. Looks like he's coming back. Jake Fraley staying hot. 2 for 4 with a home run. He's hitting something preposterous like 430. And we have Candelario, the Candyman Cam, hit a home run early on to maybe help the Reds stay in the game, but it was all for naught. But let's hope Candy and CES can continue to stay a little hot. Tough game. It will be Hunter Green versus Logan Gilbert tonight. Now, around the league, the Nationals, they beat the Dodgers 6-4, and I mention this because Jesse Winker, a guy that this city has killed, and they love to bring up how bad he's been since leaving, he is hitting .354 with a .483 OBP to start this young season. So shout out to my guy Jesse Winker. Looks to have hopefully found something in Washington. The Cardinals, and I did send this one to Casey. The Cardinals beat out the Sacramento A's 3-1 to get a game back on the Reds. That's unfortunate. But Esteury Ruiz, a guy who the Athletics benched and sent down because I guess he was not towing the company line, which is we'll keep our mouth shut while this team just tanks and does terrible. So this was his first plate appearance back, and we can run it right now, Case. This was his first plate appearance back after being recalled. And he sends one to the orbit. Look at this go.
Look at all that he learned in AAA.
Look at it.
I mean, look how much better of a player he is.
The manager said I forget that guy's name, and everybody else will too in a year.
Mark Costa.
He said he was going to be the best player in AAA, and he was right. He came right back up and he hit a home run. So shout out there. The Cubs. Reed Mouse's Cubs. Reed Mouse is not in the room today, but the Chicago Cubs. They beat the Diamondbacks out west. Michael Busch. The big Bush, he has now hit a home run in 5 consecutive games. So shout out to the former Dodger prospect there. Braves, they win 6-1 over the Astros. Royals shut out the White Sox, who now fall to 2-14. 2-14. The Padres helped out the Reds last night, beating the Brewers 7-3. The Mets helped out the Reds last night, beating the Pirates 6-3. The Mets, by the way, again, struggling when the Reds played them. They have now won 8 of their last 11. So if you want to take any solace in losing that series, the Mets appeared to have found themselves a little bit over the past couple weeks. Casey, this is another clip because the Yankees have fallen to the Blue Jays 3-1. But the story from that game is not the Yankees at all. It's that legendary broadcaster John Sterling has announced in a press conference that he is not retiring at the end of the year. He is retiring immediately. They will hold a press conference, they will hold a ceremony before first pitch on Saturday. This was one of my favorite John Sterling calls, if anybody remembers this. This was the Stantonian Blast. Casey, take it away.
The pitch to Stanton. There it goes. Deep left, it is high. It is far. It is gone out of the ballpark. A Stantonian home run. Now, what did I do wrong? What did I see wrong? He's at first.
It's one of my all-time favorite calls. The poor guy didn't know it, didn't leave the yard. That's a routine single for Giancarlo Stanton. But in his words, it was a Stantonian blast. So shout out to one of the greatest broadcasters in baseball. He grew up a Yankees fan, 36 years. He was a broadcaster for the team. So shout out to John Sterling. The Phillies, they beat the Rockies an extra 2-1. Giants beat the helpless Marlins 4-3. They have 3 wins on the year. Rangers shut out the Tigers 1-0, and the Guardians shut out the Red Sox 6-0. Tyler O'Neill was forced to leave early after colliding with the wall. Some NBA stuff. NBA news. Playoffs start tonight. 7-seeded Pelicans host the 8-seeded Lakers. 7:30 on True TV and TNT. Where the Pelicans are a point favorites. And following that game on the same channels, the 9-seeded Kings are 2.5-point dogs at home against the 10-seeded Warriors. PGA news. Believe it or not, there was some PGA news after a great Masters. There were rumors swirling all around X.com that Rory McIlroy was going to walk back on his anti-live stance and take an $850 million pay increase and a partial ownership stake in Live Golf, but his manager has come out and since denied those rumors. But something to look forward to. Maybe Rory walks back, and then the PGA is really in trouble. I'm not going to lie. PGA would be in big trouble. I have other news. Bearcats. Connor Hickman, he announced he will be joining the team next season. He will be transferring over. This is now the second straight season where Wes is poaching an NIT opponent's player. Last year was Aziz. This year is Connor Hickman from Bradley. So shout out to the Bearcats and shout out Wes Miller. NFL. Rashee Rice and former SMU cornerback Theodore Knox are being sued for $1 million by 2 victims of the March 30th crash in Dallas for severe injuries, including trauma to the brain, lacerations to the face requiring stitches, multiple contusions about the body, disfigurement, internal bleeding, and other internal and external injuries that may only be fully revealed over the course of medical treatment. That's tough. Rashee Rice, shame on you. And we have head coach Kevin O'Connell. He said Justin Jefferson did not report today to day 1 of voluntary workouts. It is voluntary, but looks like he might be a Bengal. We have finally some lighthearted news. The NFL announced that Applebee's is now the official bar and grill of the NFL.
Wow, they're making a comeback.
Making a big-time comeback.
The Applebee's has been on quite the roller coaster since I was in high school. That was the place to be. When you were in high school, you'd go there and enjoy yourself after all the high school games. You'd go and I feel like the servers would unfortunately be probably pretty disgruntled that a bunch of high school kids came in and didn't leave the appropriate tips. And then all of a sudden, when I got to maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I've come to realize that Applebee's was no longer the place to be. In fact, it became more of a it's not a meme, but it would be more of like a cultural reference to make fun of that you're going there. And then I guess now they're going to see if they can't get in good graces with the NFL and pile onto the Shield and see if the Shield can't bring them back.
Yeah. Good for Applebee's. I thought they were out of business. Ruby Tuesdays, are they still in business?
Who knows?
We don't know.
Free ads all over the place.
No free ads. Please, no free ads. Finally, and this will be the last note before break, I guess. Casey made me add this in. I did not want to add this in. I knew about it and willingly didn't put it in. But Casey said, you know what? You should mention it.
What's that?
I mean, it's really important.
Drew Sample. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday to Drew Sample.
DS89.
Now,
MVP.
before we get hate mail and before Sean sends me an email, which will be like the 4th email that I've received over the past 2 days, and by all means, Sean, keep sending them. I'll respond to the ones that I can get to from time to time. I have no problem with it. But I do want to get ahead of this before we get slandered. You have all those headlines, and you've not included the fact that the WNBA had their draft last night.
That's because
do you have anything to add there?
That's because it's going to be an entire segment.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that it could have been at least a footnote.
All right.
You did bring up the Reds, and we do have a segment on the Reds.
Okay. Well, let me add the footnote in.
Go ahead, please.
Caitlin Clark was drafted number 1 overall to the Fever.
Nice. The Fever.
Nice.
What a name.
Shout out to them. But we will have a segment on that, in fact. Yes.
Love that. All right. Well, today we got a what's the phrase? A smorgasbord?
Yeah.
A smorgasbord?
Smorgasbord?
Smorgasbord? We don't know what we're talking about around here, clearly.
Smorgasbord.
But anyway, we have a whole list of topics that are all over the place. That's essentially what I was trying to utilize right there in the smorgasbord reference. That and more on 1410 Wing AM when we come back.
You pointed.
All right, welcome back into 1410 Wing AM. You know, it's funny. It's fun that we get to do these breaks now because it does feel a little awkward if we're being honest, right? You go to break. Realistically speaking, on YouTube we don't do breaks. So it's just kind of like we just power right through it. I think the first thing Justin, speaking of Justin, Kenner and Kev, they'll be on just a short few hours, 3 o'clock.
That's correct.
But one thing that he had suggested or asked me when he first watched our show when he was coming in the office, he was like, "Do you guys take breaks?" Because I think he was trying to figure out when he could enter the studio. And I guess the answer was really we never have. We didn't. But now I get to just look awkwardly over at you guys every break and just see what I can do to make you uncomfortable. Or I got a couple giggles over there from the last break, so I'll take that. All right, moving forward. The Reds, I think this is going to be one of those segments where we can kind of do a multitude of things inside of one segment here. Because, you know, for all intents and purposes, we follow the Reds on a daily basis. And I think that, you know, there was some things that happened last night that are noteworthy. But there was nothing last night that sticks out to me, per se, that really would entail a long conversation about. I think, you know, quite frankly, you play 162 games. There's going to be games like last night. I don't want to say more times than not, but they exist. And last night, Montas, he didn't have it. He couldn't find his command. And the only thing I would add to this that I want to say that I wasn't able maybe to elaborate on last night with Chatterbox Reds is I don't really want to pile on Tyler Stevenson. I'm not suggesting that it was his fault that he couldn't throw strikes last night. Of course it wasn't. And if you're going to give Tyler Stevenson, I guess for lack of a better term, some semblance of responsibility from last night, you also got to give him credit for Montas' first 2 starts as well. So we certainly will do that. But sometimes when you're out there and you realize that whoever it is on the mound, they just don't have it. They don't have their command. They're not able to locate. They cannot throw they can't throw certain pitches for strikes. And then it becomes glaringly obvious that they can't throw those pitches for strikes. And then what do the Mariners do? They sit on certain pitches that they expect they'll finally get for a strike, and they deposit it in the right center field bleachers like Polanco did last night as well. So my only point is that Tyler Stevenson, on multiple occasions, 1-2, 2-2, 3-2, threw 2 or 3 different hitters last night, decided he was going to go with the split finger or the cutter, when in reality it's like at some point let's just throw the ball over the plate. And I'm not saying it's all Tyler Stevenson's fault. He's not the one throwing the ball. Clearly, I'm well aware of that. But it's like I wasn't a huge fan of the pitch selection last night that Tyler Stevenson was utilizing. And I wonder if that also, to be clear, could be the case of Montas suggesting that that's the pitches that he wants to go to and he needs a strike. But it did seem like he could throw his fastball over the plate. Now, it got hit from time to time. But I guess I beg the question, that is, if you have a team coming in that was struggling this poorly at the dish, wouldn't you want them to hit the ball? I mean, wouldn't you desire them to at least put the ball in play? And Polanco, give him credit. He made him pay. But it just all around was a bad night. I'd rather just wipe my hands clean, move on. Do you have anything that you'd like to add from this game? You have a hot topic. I don't know if you're going to bring it up, but you do.
I'll bring it up. Elly De La Cruz is a generational talent. Generational. Perhaps the greatest athlete to ever wear a Reds uniform. He made one of the most spectacular catches a shortstop has ever made. He made the catch because he ran about 70 yards backwards into the left fielder's territory in Spencer Steer, ran all the way back near the warning track, and made a spectacular grab. Now, as somebody who has played baseball, not at a high level, I never played college ball, but I played baseball. Usually when a ball is hit so far behind you where you're on a dead-on sprint running backwards and you're just praying for an over-the-shoulder sliding catch, that probably isn't your baseball. I don't know why he was doing it. Maybe because he thought he was the only guy that could get it, I guess, is the reason. But if we're going to see Elly do that, I don't hate the idea, like Trey said last night on Chatterbox Reds, of moving him to center field. I don't hate that notion. Because if he can make a play like that, nobody's getting a hit in center field. Nobody. Within 50 yards of him, no baseball's touching the dirt. Nothing. So I wouldn't hate that idea of moving him to center field. It was a great play. No other shortstop can make that play. I'd make an argument that probably no other shortstop should attempt to make that play. But here we are. Again, and that's just a little critique I saw from the game. I'm not going to get on Elly De La Cruz for being too good at baseball, that he can run 90 yards backwards and make a diving catch over his shoulder, gliding in the grass. I'm not going to make fun of him for it. I'm just saying it's an interesting note where you have a guy that's so athletic and that's so much faster and better than everybody else talent-wise, that he's able to make a play like that, and I give him props. But that's probably not his ball, and going forward, I would like it to probably be a left fielder's ball. Because if that ball drops, we're having different conversations. It didn't drop, but if it did drop, we're having different conversations. Again, am I a little grumpy to make fun of a play that is going to be a SportsCenter top 5? No, a little bit, maybe a little bit. But I just wanted to note it. And as Trey said, it's a 162-game season. I'm literally going to say that after every loss. Every single loss we have this year up until September.
I don't think you will.
I'm going to say it's a long season.
So what's your proposition here? What are you suggesting? You're saying that basically the left fielder, you had mentioned, obviously, you think Steer could have caught that ball. Otherwise, if he didn't see Elly De La Cruz streaking to the outfield based off of previous experiences, maybe you could argue that Elly De La Cruz probably wasn't going to back off that ball. I don't think there was a situation where Elly has shown far too often that he yields to outfielders. So you're saying the Steer basically backed off.
So we can run the video. We deal with some copyright issues, so I'm not going to.
You've already ran 2 MLB clips today. So
right.
I'll find it.
Casey will find it while we talk about it. But listen,
our account probably
Steer wasn't like, I don't think that was a guaranteed play by Steer, to be frank. And I do understand what you're saying. If you have a competent left fielder, is it as important for your shortstop to be able to range that far back and make plays? It's nice to have. I would say but is it a necessity? Maybe not. Here's the play for those that didn't get a chance to see it.
I'm going to have you
pause it right there.
Pause it right here.
Yeah,
so Spencer Steer right here is taken off. He stopped. He started to slow down right at this moment.
He's starting to see what's going on. He's reading the play. And you know what? He does understand that a shortstop's a pretty damn good player and that he probably has a chance to make the play, and he did. So shout out to Steer.
Pause it right here. So Spencer Steer at this moment, about 3 seconds into that, he had stopped running completely. He's basically there to watch Elly. Because God forbid Spencer Steer goes over and tries to make the play, which is really his ball. I mean, let's look at where he caught that baseball. That's Spencer Steer's baseball. And if he goes over there and God forbid they collide with each other and Ellie's down for 2 weeks, what do we have there? So that's really my concern.
Right. Yeah. That brings up a good point. You know, Kirby in the chat, and listen, I love Nick. We do a show every single night, but he sits there and suggests, I can't wait to see what the ramifications would be if Ellie De La Cruz crashes into the wall. Brother, he about broke his leg just the other day crashing into the bullpen tarp. I mean, at some point you play the game. You can sit here and suggest to me that outfielders they're way more prone to be an injury. Well, maybe so if they're injury prone. Nick Senzel got hurt everywhere he went. Didn't matter where he played, he's hurt. Hell, he broke his finger taking ground balls in the infield before he even got a chance to play on opening day in Cincinnati. Sometimes you're injury prone. I know who wasn't injury prone, Andrew Jones. Andrew Jones was a pretty damn good player in center field for a long time. I know who else wasn't injury prone, Jim Edmonds. Willie Mays. There's a lot of outfielders that aren't quote-unquote injury prone. Now, to be fair to Nick, listen, I said this before, this isn't even really a serious topic of conversation right now because the Reds are going to do what's best for them. That's what they should do. Whenever we talk about, now I'm going to say something that maybe is a little controversial. If I'm an organization, could care less about what it looks like for the player's long-term future. If that fits into the narrative of what my organization or program is, then sure, I'm convinced of it. But at some point, you do what's best for you and your team. And right now, Ellie De La Cruz is best fit for being a shortstop. That's a fact. However, if you get in a situation, and this is very hypothetical, we're talking maybe a year, 2 years from now, if you get in a situation where you have a major league shortstop that's readily available to play shortstop, and Ellie De La Cruz is either equal to or maybe a little lesser than of a defender, or maybe even is a little bit better than a defender, but you have a glaring hole in the outfield that you need to fill in center field, and you think Ellie De La Cruz is that person, then okay, you can convince me otherwise. But right now, it's a moot point because the Reds are already really scrapping the bottom of the barrel a little bit here in regards to defensive depth in the infield. So he's not moving, and he shouldn't move. But every time we do this outs above average, and every time we talk about essentially what's the right term to use, how great of a defender Ellie is, I'm wondering if we point to the plays like that one last night that you could argue if you have a competent defense out there, you don't need your shortstop to make that play. And now Ellie, and he should rightfully get credit for it, but Ellie's going to get credit for a play that only 5% of the league makes.
Correct.
So his outs above average is going to look significantly better because he made that play. But my argument to that would be if you had good defenders, you don't need to make that play. I'd rather, and you know what, Ellie's continued to do this. Ellie made some good plays last night. I'm not out on Ellie as a shortstop by any stretch of the imagination, but I like my shortstop to make, and again, he's very young, and I'm not trying to overly sell that he can't do this, to be very clear, because there's going to be people that are like, oh, you're saying that Ellie can't play shortstop. I'm not saying that. I want my shortstop to make routine plays and make basically all the plays that a normal traditional shortstop should make, period. Now, if you want to be a superhero and go catch balls off the side of a tarp and go catch balls in left center field and catch balls in the outfield when you're calling guys off, and that helps, essentially that adds up and helps your outs above average, okay, sure. Because your range, and that's what that statistic and that's what that metric really decides, is how good is your range. And guess what? Ellie De La Cruz's range is better than everybody. Period.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He's the fastest, the most athletic guy that they've had on their team maybe since I can remember. Just genuinely. I know some people compare him to Eric Davis. I have not seen Eric Davis play. I was too young. So it is what it is. But for all intents and purposes, he's the shortstop right now and continue to be the shortstop. But I think it's a fair point that you bring up. If you have a competent left fielder or you have a left fielder that takes control, the left fielder probably catches that ball.
We just can't afford another injury. And God forbid an injury happens to Ellie De La Cruz, and that's where we're done. Casey, you had a point?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a double-edged sword, and Trace has kind of reiterated this point. I'm going to just do it in a simpler form. You want him to be Ellie De La Cruz. You want him to be spectacular. But you also want him to just be a shortstop. You don't need him to go do all these other things. Unfortunately, our defense, though, has not been the greatest.
Yeah, defense has been tough. Will Benson's made a couple of nice catches. I mean, they've been better as of late. But and again, nobody's going to fault Ellie De La Cruz for not running back
Right.
90 yards to go catch that.
He's gonna be an athlete and go make plays.
Correct.
Right.
And that's part of the deal. It's just the question of the matter
I
is
can't-
whether or not you can make the case that, hey, you don't. It's really probably such a small sample size that I really wouldn't overly concern myself about maybe the outs above average being hugely affected by him making that play last night. But again, to be very clear, I'm glad that he can make that play. That's fantastic. But it does make you wonder. I think it's fair to say that when you see him make that play, you don't think to yourself, it would be nice to be able to see him utilize that speed more often. The same speed that we see on the base pass really, if we're being honest, isn't going to be utilized all that often at shortstop. It's not. Now, quickness, sure. Will he have more range than other guys? Yes. But it'll be interesting to see over time whether or not that range will actually benefit long term. Because if you get to balls, that's great. But you still have to make the play. He's gotten to balls before that, unfortunately, it puts him in precarious situations where he's got to use his arm strength, and then he makes a bad throw. He makes ultimately, it's not an error, but it could lead to an error. And we'll find out. Ellie De La Cruz ain't going nowhere, guys. It's simple. Simple as that. He's the shortstop. He's going to be the shortstop until otherwise proven, and somebody needs to push him out of there. And I don't think anybody's coming to knock on that door relatively soon. All right, we have a buy or sell coming up right after this on 1410 Wing AM. Stick around. It ought to be a good one. Welcome back in to the radio. 1410 Wing AM. You are a radio guy, Elliot. I think you've worked at the radio before.
Did I? Yeah, I did, didn't I?
Yes.
What do you think our bumper music to this segment was?
Who knows? That's the funny. That's maybe the.
I think it's gonna be-
most fun.
I
I
think
was gonna say funnest, which I've been told my whole life is not a word.
I think it's
the most fun.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be Brick House. I think that's gonna be the bump. Bump, 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 bump. That was
You like that?
That was one of my go-to bumpers I played at the radio station, which
Right.
again I did work at.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Nobody really does. I don't tell anybody. I don't make it a joke or a shtick, and I'm sure nobody's tired of it. Here we go though. Buy or sell.
Yep.
We're gonna do some Reds. Buy or sell. We just talked.
We need to get some stingers.
We do need some stingers. Can I hear the buy?
Buy. Sell.
Oh, look at
Nice.
that.
Jim Kramer coming in hot.
Yeah.
What do you got, Elliot?
Buy or sell. Candelario is going to be another free agent. Miss.
Miss.
Buy or sell.
Oh man, I'll tell you what.
It depends what your definition of miss is.
The issue, you know what? I mean, listen, I swim in just completely different waters from last night to today. I come in, last night, hey, ho hum, 1 of 162. You're doing a show with Nick. Kirby's got the vibes always high for the most part. You get through it. You're like, you know what? Hey, that's an interesting conversation we had. We know that isn't a big deal. Come in today. First thing, hey, I don't want to be that guy, but I mean, Ellie De La Cruz is.
Come on.
Listen.
Killing me. You're killing me.
No, I'm not killing
Yeah,
you.
you are.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to kill you. But what I'm saying is, I'm swimming in completely different water. That's all.
That's good. It's good to have that.
It is. It's very good to have that. I think it's a healthy thing that we have here. But it's just like my brain is in a pretzel because I go from one end of the aisle and literally I go into the next aisle and it's a completely different situation. It's like Jungle Gyms. No free ads.
Listen, if you wanted me to be the same as Nick Kirby,
I didn't say that.
Today's show is, here's what I'm going to say. Then I'm going to get rid of that buy or sell. I'm going to say the Reds are going to win the World Series forever. Every year, it's only sunshine and smiles. Sunshine and smiles. Everything the Reds do is great in La La Land. That's where we are in La La Land. So I can do that bit if you want me to, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you want me to switch the little lever, and you want me to be full positive Elliot, we can do that, but I'm not coming back. I'm only going to be positive for the rest of the time. For the rest of the time I'm at Chatterbox Sports, I'm just going to be a jolly little guy. I'm jolly. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, so this is the thing. You're asking me to make a quick little analysis on Candelario. So far, he's not been very good this year. That's very, very evident. His long-term view of being a baseball player looks like he's a pretty good hitter. And I think that will bear itself out. Will he be
Yes,
a miss? That's
When the season's done, when the book of 2024 is written, and you have to look back at some of the names on this team, will Candelario be a miss?
I think a disappointment's the word that I'd like to use. I think the answer will be yes. He will be a disappointment.
I agree with you, so I'm going to buy it. I think he's going to be he's not going to be bad. He's not going to be Will Myers. I just don't think he's going to live up to the expectations that Reds fans probably had for him. And I think that's the point of this. And again, I hope he finds it. He's going to play nearly every day, and we need him to. He's an important piece of this roster. I just don't think he's going to live up to our expectations. That goes with pretty much every single player on the Reds roster, I'd say. Every player on this team has an insanely high ceiling, and we're all looking up like, where are we? I'm looking at the ceiling. Where's everybody?
Who has an insanely high ceiling? Exactly?
Everybody does.
No, they don't.
In the minds of Red fans.
And that's the problem then. If you're a Reds fan, I mean, do you... What's an insanely high ceiling on some of these guys? I'm just being honest. Like, do you think that the fan base of the overall fan base looks at Hunter Green and they have a very, very positive outlook on him? I don't think that they do. I really don't.
I think
could be wrong.
A lot of
about
people
that.
do.
Tyler Stevenson's another guy. I don't think the fan base is really expecting a whole lot out of him. Jonathan India has already been half this city's already wanted him out of town. Thank God, to be honest, he's not been out of town because he's been at least patching up a hole defensively at second base. And I'm going to round out saying this about Candelario. If anything, he has been very, very a pleasant surprise at third base. So Candelario, I'm not going to say it's a miss. I would venture to say it might be a slight disappointment. But at all said and done, maybe he's somewhere in the he's going to be right around what he's been his whole career.
Nick Kirby says, guy hits a 415 home run. Let's talk about if he's going to be a free agent miss.
That's right.
Here's what I'm going to do. The next time I do buy or sell, I'm going to say, is Candelario a future MVP? And that's what I'll do after every single one of these guys gets on base. After every single one of them gets on base, is this player an MVP type player? And that's what we'll debate. And I'll have to fake through my answers. Next buy or sell. We have, should Jonathan India continue to bat leadoff? This is my guy. And on base percentage wise, he's been fine. He's been getting on base. He's been drawing some walks this year. Hitting, unfortunately for my boy, he's been struggling a little bit. I think the number's 2 for 24 if I did my math right. I might be off by a couple at bats. But he has 2 hits in his last 8 games. It's been brutal to watch. He's been hitting some decent balls, but again, just not getting down. At this point, right now, I don't think there's anybody else I'd rather see bat leadoff. I do think that's Jonathan India's spot. I do think he excels there. I don't know who else would take the spot. So for that reason, I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy that he can, through these struggles, he continues to fight through it and bat leadoff. Casey?
I agree with you. I think that he's shown a lot of promise there at leadoff. I'll give credit to Sir Boy Wonder. I mean, like a year ago, he was saying that Jonathan India should be batting leadoff, and to start the year, he's been fantastic. I know he's been struggling here recently, but I mean, if you're getting on base for me at leadoff, that's good enough for me. I'm sure he'll figure out hitting. It'll come back to him. So.
Yeah, I think we're at like a yellow light right now. Maybe even just what's the you an art guy? What's the color between green and yellow? Do we know if those two colors are mixed together? What do we have? Do you know?
Yellow and green.
Yeah.
Those are right by each other. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I'm saying like it's got to have something on the spectrum here. No.
Like puke.
I mean,
Like
you're
the
just
puke
asking.
yellow?
You're just asking.
I'm asking.
Do I look like I paint,
I'm
buddy?
asking some basic questions, and you guys are looking at me
Do
like,
I look like I
No, I mean
paint?
that's fine. Forget it. You get my point. I'm not all out. Listen, India's fine. I think Will Benson just the other day was 2 for his last 19. He figured it out. He'll be fine as well. It's like you can get yourselves into this part of the season where the statistics, the numbers, they look grotesque because XYZ's happen. But if these guys go on slumps in the middle of July, then I don't think it's made out to be as big of a deal. And I understand the concept of being able to maybe overreact early in the season. However, I'm not doing it with Jonathan India. I think he's more than a capable hitter, and he's one of the better offensive players on this team. So I'm not moving guys.
I agree.
And he's not going to move. I don't think he's going to move. last year, as you had just mentioned, Casey, with Sir Boy even specifically saying, hey, this guy's done better in the leadoff spot. Why doesn't he go back there? He struggles, and then he gets put back in the leadoff spot and he sparks. He's getting on base as well. So you can't play both sides of the aisle with this either. You can't suggest, hey, I'm not really worried about batting average. I want to know about their OPS plus, and I want to know about their on-base percentage. And then when they have a bad batting average, then be like, well, their batting average isn't good. Nah, you can't do that. That's not the way that it works in my world. He's getting on base. He's going to continue finding ways to get on base. He's a major league hitter. He's going to stay in the leadoff spot. Simple as that. So I'm buying that he should stay there.
I agree. So the next buy or sell, if I get the little thingy right.
Yeah. What do you got?
If it comes up, Frankie Montas has lost a step. Now, I'm going to tell you some stats. I know Nick Kirby doesn't like to, so I'll start with a Nick Kirby style rationale here. Frankie Montas pitched a great game last night. He was great, so good. But unfortunately, the last several outings, it does appear vastly different from the first two outings. So the first two outings, 11 2/3 innings, 9 hits, only 1 earned run while striking out 9. Over his last 2 games, 7 innings, 9 hits, 8 earned runs, 2 home runs, 6 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Vastly different pitcher, it appears, the last 2 outings. And again, I do believe Frankie Montas might be behind Nick Lodolo, of course, the second most important starting pitcher we have on this team. Saying that, I do think he's taken a little bit of a step back here. I don't know if last night was a fluke, but clearly the last couple of games, he hasn't necessarily had it all going for him.
Can't you say that maybe you just get one mulligan, right? I think per se, every call it 5, 6, 7 starts, you're going to get one mulligan that, more than likely. None of these guys, and I've said this how many times on this show, and I'm going to continue to say it, none of these guys, not a single one of them, maybe Lodolo if he stays healthy, is not an ace. They're not aces. They're not guys that are going to go out there and shove every single time you give them the ball. They're not. And you know what? Montas is coming off a season-ending injury last year. He got to throw 1 inning. Yeah. Comes back this year, throws the ball relatively well. And, of course, Cincinnati does what a Cincinnati fans always do. That's what every fan base probably does. They talk about how this guy's going to win 20 games, and they're laughing about how in the spring training Montas said he's going to win 20 games. And it's it's a roller coaster with some. He'll be fine. I'm not going to get too high and too low on Frankie Montas. I'm not there yet. This is a long season. And you know what I'm going to say?
What?
I'd rather him get shelled than get hurt. I'd rather him get shelled than get hurt. We talked about health. For all intents and purposes, he just wasn't able to throw strikes last night. I don't think he's hurt. Just because you throw the ball bad, you don't have to have an excuse. Sometimes you're just not good.
They did mention on the broadcast he's lost a couple miles per hour in velo. Yeah.
Last night he did.
I believe that's what they were saying on the broadcast.
Okay, well I'm not going to overreact. If that's maybe the case for 2, 3, 4 starts in a row, sure, but I'm not going to overreact just because one night in Seattle his velo's down 2 miles an hour. I'm just not going to do it. And maybe I'm wrong for not. But again, this is the stuff that pisses me off. We're going to go into this next start, and if he throws 6 or 7 innings again, all the damn X.com people that overreact after every single thing are going to be right back in the MVP or the Cy Young Award winning BS. I'm tired of it. Just sit back and relax and watch the season. Every single time someone goes out and does something doesn't mean it's the end of the world or the world's best player. We do this with Elly De La Cruz all the time. Elly De La Cruz makes 2 errors tonight, and next thing you know, we're going to have to sit here and discuss how bad he is as a shortstop. But then, all of a sudden, he goes and he hits, 2 home runs and a double, and we're going to have to hear about he's in the Hall of Fame. But I get it, sports talk. I guess we live in the world of fandom. That's
Correct.
part of being a fan. But at some point, it'd be nice just to be somewhat realistic about this stuff. And no, Frankie Montas, I don't think is hurt. And I guess I'll be made an idiot if he is. I think he had a bad night. And you know what? In sports, that happens. Sometimes in life, that happens.
That's right.
I'm sure all the people that watch this show, they've never had a bad day. They've never walked out of the house and just were terrible.
I
know who has. I definitely know who hasn't. Blackmore. He's never had it.
No.
You got anything to add, Casey?
All I was gonna say is, were we really expecting him to be a sub-2 ERA guy?
No,
the whole rest
of course not.
No,
So
no.
this is still on pace for what he was gonna do more than likely.
Correct.
Anyways, like you're gonna have bad days. I'm not worried about Frankie Montas.
I was more concerned that it could be injury related. That was the point of this. Now, we do have 2 more, but what I'd like to do, if it's okay with my boss Trace,
Sure.
I think we should take a break, and we should do the final 2 buy or sells and the Bengals thing in the same segment. We'll do a little combining.
I think that there's 0 chance on the next segment we get through 2 buy or sells with the Cincinnati Reds and the Bengals talk that you guys have planned.
Let's try it.
I'll find out, and you will find out right after this on 1410 Wing AM. All right, welcome back in. It's Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Trace Fowler. Casey, Elliot.
Trace?
No Reed Mouse today.
No Reed.
And you know what it is today? You guys know what it is. Casey, why don't you let everybody know what today is and no Reed Mouse?
It's DS89 day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you let the people know what that actually is?
It's a Miami football baseball day. What do you mean?
No,
Oh
it's-
my
it's-
gosh!
he
You know
want-
what?
he-
You know what
he
you
wanted-
do, Elliot.
wanted you to say
Elliot, please. I set this guy up. I didn't want to take his bit. I was being nice, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's just, was I trying to be nice right there,
You were
Elliot?
trying to be very
I was
nice.
trying to be very nice. I was trying to make sure that I didn't steal what somebody else had found out, right?
Correct.
I was told Reed Mouse isn't here today, and that's a shame. That's a real shame that Reed isn't here today because of this reason. And I throw it over to you, and you just fumble the bag completely. When I say you fumble the bag, you fumbled it like Jeremy Hill fumbled.
Correct.
I mean, literally the world's worst fumble.
So
And you still don't know, Casey. I can't believe this.
So today, again, for the radio, you have to re-emphasize points made in previous segments because some people may not have heard that segment. So, like, some people might have missed the segment where I proclaimed Candelario was an MVP candidate. They might have missed that. So what you do in the next segment, you make some notions out of it. Now, Trace wanted you to mention, because you said it right there. You said it was DS89 Day.
Right.
What does that mean, Casey?
It's his birthday, Drew Sample's birthday.
Drew Sample's
Sample's
birthday.
birthday.
Yeah, because the vast majority of the people in the world, Casey, probably have no clue who DS89 is. Hell, I think half the people that go down to Paycor Stadium don't know what DS89
Oh, come on.
is.
Everyone
I think
knows.
Kinner and
Everyone
Kev-
knows DS89.
Well,
that
He's the
is not
MVP
true.
of the Bengals.
Kinner and Kev, when they watch their hometown, I think they're, a Ravens fan and a Browns fan?
I think you got Browns in Pittsburgh.
Browns in Pittsburgh, when they watch those loser teams, they know their guys by what you just said. Like, they know the DS89. They'll do some abbreviation of numbers, but a lot of people might not know it. So, if you're a fan of Cincinnati Bengals, of course you know it, but if you're not a fan of us and you cheer for a sad team like the Browns or the Steelers, you're
Right.
not going to know. So, we have to reemphasize the point that today is Drew Sample's birthday. So, shout out to Drew Sample. Shout out to
congratulations
Reed
to
Mouse.
Drew. Yeah, and Reed's always been a Drew Sample stan for those
Always.
that are on the radio that have no clue about this bit. But yeah, Reed Mouse, he's done nothing but to sit there and give the praise to Drew Sample when the Bengals offense does well. And I'm sure he'll continue to do that because it's what you call a big old bit. All right, buy or sell. You got a couple more?
I do. I have 2 more buy or sells. Once I get to my little thing here, and boom. Ellie De La Cruz could be one of the best outfielders in baseball. If they gave him the opportunity.
I mean, I will say this about Ellie De La Cruz. I'm going to make this a short answer and a very quick one.
Yeah.
As we move through these buy or sells. I think the answer is yes. You know why? Because he can excel almost anywhere on the field because he's that athletic. He's that gifted as a player. So the answer is yes. Does it mean he should move out there? No. But the answer is yes. I am buying that.
I would say, do you remember the play? Oh, my God, I'm going to forget. The Athletics left fielder, he went to the Mets after it. I think he got maybe busted for steroids. He quit midseason. Who was that guy? Oh, I'm going to forget it. Anyway. And this is why I'm terrible on the radio. I need to remember names. Reed Mouse always remembers names, and I'm forgetting.
I think that's because some people have brains, some people don't.
That's correct. Anyway, the outfielder for the Athletics, and again, I should know it. I don't know it. I apologize. He had that throw from the corner of the Coliseum. Do you remember this? And he aired it. He airmailed it from deep left field in the warning track all the way to home plate to get a guy out. I think Ellie De La Cruz, if he utilized that arm in the outfield, nobody's tagging up. 0 people are tagging up. And I think that would be pretty cool. Again, Ellie De La Cruz is our shortstop and nobody else can play the position right now at this very second. But if the Reds were get to a point where they're fully healthy, we got Noelvi, we got Matt, I do think there's a chance you move him out there, and he could be, yes, one of the best outfielders in Major League Baseball, maybe the best outfielder. People love Billy Hamilton's defense. This is another world. Could you imagine Ellie De La Cruz going out there robbing home runs, throwing guys out from 300 feet away every single night? It would be electric. So yes, I'm going to buy the fact that Ellie De La Cruz could be one of the world's greatest outfielders. Yes, I will. Positive. Casey?
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be one of the best baseball players in the game right now. I mean, there's an argument to be made for it. He's been playing excellent baseball here as of late. I mean, just the shortstop play that he made last night, catching it basically on the warning track on the left side of the outfield. I mean, yeah, I mean.
Ioannis Cespedes was the name I was thinking of, by the way. Thank God.
Cespedes. You got one final buy or sell or
yeah,
not?
I do. So we all bought on that one. That's a buy.
It's a buy. That's what that is. Yeah.
And we have one final one here. Buck Farmer, when he comes in the game, he's signaling the white flag. It's a forfeit.
Oh.
Whenever Buck comes in, it's over. You just you say that was a fun 7 innings, but these last 6 outs don't matter.
This is the most Elliott buy or sell I have ever seen in my life. I mean, when you script up a way for Elliott Rearing to do a buy or sell segment, this is what they come up with. I mean, we have got nothing but negative undertones in every single one of these.
No.
And you know what? I mean, I'm here for it. I'm going to do my best to bear through this to a certain extent.
Sure.
But come on, man. I think Buck Farmer, before last night, he had thrown like 4 scoreless innings prior to that.
I think he's pitched in 7 games. He's given up a run in 3 of them. 3 of them?
Okay, yeah, so that's my point. He's pitched 7 games. He's given up a run in 3 of them. That means there's 4 of them based off my math. He has not given up a run, which was the previous 4 outside of last night. I'm not going to bat for Buck Farmer. If you had to ask me, hey, of all the guys that you're probably going to get rid of out of this bullpen, Buck Farmer's probably the one that's going first for me. The only caveat, that is if we have some health here, to be clear. The only caveat, last year around the trade deadline, I had seen there was rumors that people were wanting to possibly acquire Buck Farmer, and I had mentioned, maybe wrongfully so, I had mentioned, hey, not a bad idea if you can get almost anything out of this guy. I know you're not going to get a lot. Maybe you get a lottery ticket out of some young Dominican that just is 17 years old, or maybe some kid that foregone the draft in the States, and he's an 18-year-old and single A, and he got drafted in the 15th round. Maybe that's what you'd get out of it. I don't know, but I would have taken anything. But last year for Buck Farmer.
I do think there is a question when Sam Moll and Ian Jabot are ready to go. What happens with Buck Farmer? Is that a fair concern? Because it does seem to me like Buck Farmer is the forfeit guy.
They paid him a good amount of money.
They did.
And he has no options, obviously.
Correct.
And they paid him a good amount of money. Is pretty relative.
So
would they pay him, like a million and a half?
Would Justin Wilson get the axe? Who's getting the axe if Sam Moll and Ian Jabot are
Somebody's going to get hurt.
Okay. How is that any less negative than what I do? You just say somebody's going to get hurt.
Well, I'm doing that as a little. If you've paid attention to the Reds, even in the last year and a half, you realize, and I guess the guy from the Mets, I don't know his name off the top of my head, the guy that had gotten suspended for manipulating the IL, that's kind of what I was referencing. It seems like every time the Reds have to cut somebody always finds a way to become hurt.
I see what you meant.
Yeah,
I
think Kevin Newman had gastritis last year.
For 6 months.
Yeah, gastritis. And then Kirk Casale he dropped the dumbbell on his pinky toe.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was, and he was out for like 6 months, and he magically appeared. He magically appeared when they could have utilized him again.
You're right.
It's kind of a wild thing they do down there.
And I lied. I did have one more buy or sell.
All right.
I have one more for you, and let's make sure it's ready to go, and boom. The Reds World Series confirmed. Buy or sell?
You're ridiculous.
Why am I ridiculous? You said I'm not positive enough. I just said we're going to the World Series.
Well, you've not said if you're buying or selling it.
I'm buying it, baby. I bought the hype, and I'm all in. Buy, Casey. Hit the button. Buy. Yeah. Listen. The Reds are fine. I'm not worried one bit about this game. Everybody's going to be a Cy Young winner. Everybody's going to be an MVP. We're all having fun. And here's the best part, Trace. I don't know if you know this. They're all very young. So if they're young, they're going to continue. This is a dynasty. This is the start of a dynasty right here in Cincinnati. And the Reds are going to the World Series. I am as positive as a fan could be. Boom. You buying? Let's stay here. Casey, you buying or selling?
I buy the hype.
Yeah, because God forbid you have anything negative to say. We go to Trace. I dare you to sell it. I dare you to sell it right now. I'll clip it right now. I'll clip it mid-show. You selling this?
No, I think that you took the words right out of my mouth, Elliot. Everything that you stated exactly what I believe. Bengals? Got some Bengals talk in you?
So did you buy it or sell it?
I'm buying it.
Okay, you bought it.
Yeah.
Casey,
because if I sell it, then essentially
Casey informed me there was Bengals news. I didn't see any, but Casey did say there were some, and I'm going to go along. I'm going to listen to Casey. He's my Bengals expert. So, Casey, inform us with the Bengals.
Well, they reported to Paul Brown, or not Paul Brown.
Paycor Stadium. Where did they report?
Paycor Stadium.
Paycor.
Yeah, and there was just some interesting comments made. Mainly about Dax Hill, what that situation's looking like right now. A lot of conversation centered around Dax Hill, the safety corner. We don't really know what he is.
Is he even going to start?
From the things that I'm reading and the things that we're going to talk about here in a second, I don't think so. I don't think that he's going to start. Now, they seem very confident in him having some sort of role on the team. They have mentioned that he's got opportunities to do things on this team as long as he kind of specializes in a said role, whether that's the slot corner role, whether that's at free safety, whether that's at a boundary corner. The dude is very talented. He was picked 31st overall in the 2022 NFL draft, and there's a good reason for it. I mean, the dude, very athletic. The problem was when we drafted him, we wanted him to replace Jesse Bates, a all-pro safety. That was a very, very tall task to ask him to fulfill. And now we sit here today asking ourselves, where is he going to go? And all signs point that he's going to be riding the bench again this year, probably behind Mike Hilton. He was a slot corner at Michigan. He had majority of his snaps there. And I think that's where he fits best. Dax Hill being the slot corner of the future, I'm okay with that. But the main part of this conversation is, when do we admit that the Bengals made a mistake with the Jesse Bates thing? And I know we've talked about this time and time again, but it's clear to me.
It might be Trace's favorite topic.
It's clear to me that they're continuing to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, and no one really wants to admit it. They draft Dax Hill to play safety, and majority of his snaps in college were at the slot position. We draft Miles Murphy, who only sees the field for like 300 snaps last year.
Let me ask you this. The Bengals front office, and specifically ownership, I'd say Blackburn and everybody else who's in charge of this organization, they've been credited for the turnaround of a culture that was seemingly lost. For a long time, the Bengals culture had been lost. When do we shift? And I guess this can kind of we have to go to break here soon, but this can maybe go into our next segment because it is the 5th year now, right, Casey? It's the 5th year of the Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow era. Historically, that duo, who has not won a Super Bowl in that time frame, has never gone on to win a Super Bowl. I'm not going to say I'm going to overreact. I'm not going to say I know Tom and us had the same debate. Is it Super Bowl or bust? If Joe Burrow doesn't win a Super Bowl this year, is his career over? Yada, yada, yada. All that nonsense. The answer to that is no. But at some point with this front office, with this head coaching staff, with everybody, with the coaching staff, I mean, is there any urgency this season to get it right? Because it seems like, according to your analysis there seems to be consistent issues amongst the front office. Am I right on that or no?
I think the main concern with the duo of the front office, the coaching staff, and the quarterback, what a lot of people point to is that usually by year 5, if that duo, if this conglomeration of talent and people in the room making the decisions is going to work,
Yeah.
it usually happens by year 5. And that's just what the NFL history has shown time and time again. And if it doesn't happen by year 5, it just doesn't happen at all. And there's some very rare instances when it happens, but most of the time you can just chuck it to let's start rebuilding the process again until we get it right. Now, I don't think that they're at that point. I don't think they should panic at all. It was kind of a lost season last year. I'll give them some time. I'll give them another year, even if this year doesn't work out. But at some point, you look at the roster, and I think a lot of people last year were a little blind to the fact that we had a downgrade significantly on defense. I think this year there's a lot of hope, but I think, did we really address issues, or did we get a little worse again? Because I look at DJ Reader, and he's a big part of our defense, and we let him walk out the door. I love the Sheldon Rankings signing, but that is not a one-for-one replacement for what this Bengals defense needs. And so, that being said, yes, it is concerning, but I think that there's still time, obviously. The window to me isn't necessarily 5 years. It's the next couple seasons, because Joe Burrow's cap hit hasn't reached that $40-50 million cap hit yet.
Sure.
That's when things start to get really tough. As soon as that happens, that's when I'm going to start hitting the panic button.
Are the Bengals better right now than they were last year? We'll talk about that more on 1410 Wing AM right after this. All right, we're off the radio for a minute. First and foremost, those that hopefully that gave you a little chuckle there. Casey, you seem down in the dumps on the Bengals a little bit. We'll talk about this on the radio, but you seem down in the dumps a little bit. I need you to lighten your spirits a little bit. I do want you to know that last year I was mocked, ridiculed, said I basically was called every name in the book about how there was this quarterback named Jake Browning that could possibly, just be serviceable enough to get. Yeah, I mean, last year you went. What was the record you had last year?
9-8.
You went 9-8. You went 9-8 without your all-world quarterback. How could you possibly be down on a season like that?
I'm not necessarily down on them. I just want people to be a little more realistic, because I think we got worse again on defense. I don't think we improved on defense this year.
All right, let's save some of that. We'll get
some of
into
it.
all that
Save
on the
some of
radio. We do have ads. That helps pay the bills around here. Helps pay for basically our bills, at least, which is a good thing. The lights are still on. Some people on the internet are questioning. They're wondering where all this money comes from. How do we keep this thing afloat? Well, thanks to United Dairy Farmers, and also thanks to these lovely folks. Casey?
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah, I'll take it away. We'll start with Pawnee Water.
Oh,
Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio.
where?
Hamilton, Ohio.
Oh.
Right here.
Some would say it's the
home.
hometown water.
Hometown, yeah, basically.
Some others are saying
that it's the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com so you can buy this great tasting water.
Great tasting.
Usually it doesn't bother me. It's just, it got me.
Got him.
It got me. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data centered world with the suite of services from mobile computing, desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work from home computing modules to improve efficiency and
PRODUCTIVITY.
productivity.
productivity. Yeah.
Yeah, it's spelled productivity.
Yeah. I was having trouble there,
Yeah.
as you could see.
I like your shirt.
Well, yeah, it's from our Chatterbox store.
And you can go. What's the store? What's the store link? What's the URL there? Chatterbox Sports Store. What is it? C-Box Store. What is it?
Hey, Casey, won't you actually finish the ad reads that pay the bills around here versus the clown that doesn't even know our own website?
Visit encore.tech. Path to Innovation begins here. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our merch store, Trace.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do around here? You know, I mean, sometimes the guy, you know,
Listen, we're struggling this morning. We're struggling.
I'm not struggling. I'm pretty sure that of all the people that should be struggling, it should be probably me. Not to make excuses for myself, but
I'm not struggling. I thought I've had a great show. I thought I've had a great show.
What's your performance so far on the show? What do you think?
B-. That's if I come home with a B-. My mom and dad are happy. I don't know about you. You can have your own scale with your kids. My parents know a B's good. B's good. What's the store though called? Because many are saying you don't know it either. Some are saying you don't know it either. I'm not saying that. That's what they're saying.
What's that?
What's the store's website called? How do you get there?
You go to chatterboxsports.com/store.
Okay, that's it.
It's not hard.
That's what people wanted to know.
I mean, you. What's the website called? Chatterboxsports.com. I mean, I don't think you can make it much more difficult than that for you.
Yeah, I don't know. If you talk to me, everything's a little difficult, though, isn't it? But that's it. Anything else? Any other silly notes before we get back to the radio? Any other silly things? I was trying to think of something silly, and I couldn't think of anything.
Before we go on here on the radio, I've always, like I said, I need at some point to have a visual counter of how many segments we have left.
We only have 2 more left.
We have 2 segments left?
We've done 4 segments.
All right.
Because we did headlines, then Reds talk, then buy or sell, then buy or sell / Bengals. That's 4 segments.
All right. So we only have 2 more segments?
2 more segments.
And the radio's a breeze.
Nate, don't. I think they do.
Some are saying.
Memberships do give discounts on merch, right? Right? Isn't that a thing?
Yes, they should.
I'm almost 100% positive. I think
we'll have to make sure inside of the YouTube portal that you get a code.
Okay.
I mean, I know we have a code. Off the top of my head, I actually do not know what that code is. And
So
I wouldn't be able to give the code out over the air because otherwise that would defeat the purpose.
Matt Bailey, do I still live with my parents? Yes, I do. Tough world out there. Tough economy.
Yeah.
I'm going to save some money. I'm going to live at home until I feel the need to move elsewhere.
Right.
I would like it known that I have lived elsewhere before. I lived in Toledo by myself for several years.
Yeah.
I lived in an apartment in Clifton by myself for several years. And then coronavirus happened. So some were saying that I shouldn't do it again. It's a bad omen. I'm not saying that. Some are saying it.
Yeah. I'm jealous from time to time. You know,
Yeah.
Saving money is a good thing.
Yeah, Mr. Mo. I won't mention that on air, but yes.
Fair enough.
But should we give 5 seconds and go back to it?
I think that we should
Okay.
give 5 seconds and we'll go right back to it. So I'll let you do the little countdown over there. Go ahead. All right, welcome back into Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Trace Fowler, and we had just gone through a litany of things. And it seems like Casey McAllister, of all the guys, the guy that usually is the most optimistic, and you know what I think it is? I think some of it is when you sit next to Elliott. There's an aroma that comes with that. There's a rub-off nature that comes with that. And from time to time, you can become a little pessimistic. You can become down in the dumps about your favorite team. But some would say maybe you're being realistic. Maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe you're just, shooting it straight, as they say. Casey, before we went to break, you were suggesting, obviously, Dax Hill was a swing and a miss. The Bengals, you not to say the same song and dance. I don't want to throw you under the bus here, but you were given the same song and dance about Jesse Bates and how, ultimately the Bengals made a mistake. I don't know how that's debatable besides the fact that, I like bringing it up because Reed, he sometimes he hangs on to things that I just think that sometimes are really impossible to argue, and he finds a way to argue about it, which I guess to him, Jesse Bates was not a mistake because they got Von Bell back because the Bengals were so smart. They knew that Von Bell was going to struggle with the Panthers, and they knew that, we're not going to re-sign him. We're going to let him go for the Panthers, and then we're going to get him back, and they're going to pay for his contract because that's how smart Duke Togeman is. That's real winning if you think about it. And then not only did they decide that they wanted to replace Jesse Bates with Dax Hill, they are now coming to find out that maybe they don't even really need him in the first place. Like, Dax Hill's not even good enough. We'll just go get Geno Stone. Did I sum that up pretty well?
Yeah,
Casey, that seems
basically.
like Bengals hatred. Are you going to stand for that?
Here's the thing, guys. I got burnt so bad last year that has scarred me to no end.
Yeah, you guys were mockingly. You guys were all openly mocking, and yes, I'm looking directly at you, Everett. And you did it as well. And Reed and everyone else in the room was openly mocking Tom last year about when he kept saying, are we sure that this team is better this year than they were last year? Which is why for those that are on the radio, probably didn't understand the laugh and the giggle towards the exclamation that I made at the end of that last segment. But that's what it is. Are the Bengals better now than they were last year? They were at 9-8. They had their quarterback out for quite considerable amount of time. But you think the defensive side of the ball, you got burnt last year, and now you're a little concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just as concerned as I was at the end of the year about our defense as I am this year, or at this moment. I don't think we've made considerable progress in stopping what was the most important thing, the most egregious thing that was going on with our defense, which was the yards allowed in the run game. And we got guys that I like. Sheldon Rankins, he's no DJ Reader in terms of stopping the run. He's not plugging up 2 gaps. He's a great pass rusher. And I think our team is built to compete against the Chiefs. But when you look at the rest of the AFC North, I think we've gotten considerably worse. And yes, Geno Stone led the league in interceptions, but he's not that great in stopping the run. And we're getting a guy in Von Bell who, like you said, struggled with the Panthers, got hurt. The guy is older, and he got hurt with the Panthers. Now we're getting him for a cheap bargain, which I love. I love that idea. And I think that the safety room has actually gotten better. But has it really gotten that much better? I don't know. I don't know yet. Geno Stone had one great season. One good season. And if you go look at the film, yes, he had some really good interceptions, but there was some gimmies in there. There was some stuff that was just thrown to him. And I don't know. I just think that I am being cautious about being super positive about the Bengals, at least until I see what happens in the draft.
To be fair,
there's holes on the roster
Sure.
still, and go ahead.
To be fair, and I know Drew has mentioned it in the chat, and I know you've mentioned it before, and Reed mentions it every day, every hour. The Bengals did play the NFL's #1 toughest schedule last season, and that was without Joe Burrow, who's a generational talent. They played 11 games versus playoff teams. That is the most in the NFL since 2000. Since the year 2000, that is the very most. They went 4-7 against playoff teams, 5-1 against non-playoff teams. They played 14 games against teams who had a better record, better than 500. So, my point being is that this year, again, despite what Casey's saying, some moves that maybe have not been exactly brilliant, they are playing the #6 easiest schedule on paper as of right now, and this is a prime year for a bounce back. Prime year.
It is a prime year for a bounce back, which I'll pose the question to you guys in just a minute. I do want to add one quick point there on the defensive side of the ball, though, that doesn't seem to get talked about all that often, is that they drafted a defensive end in the first round, probably because they felt like that was a glaring area that they could probably address and or help out. If it wasn't for Hendrickson, what kind of pass rush does this team offer for the back end secondary as a whole? You can sit there and you can crush the secondary because they give up this, they give up that. But sometimes the back end is reliant heavily upon whether or not there's a pass rush. And again, Hendrickson's been unbelievably great. For every Mike Moustakas, there's a Hendrickson, hopefully, in Cincinnati. But point is saying that you can at least give some grace to the back end of the defense for that area. No?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not crushing them. Like, my expectations for the Bengals is Super Bowl. I think that's where people get a little lost, where I'm tough on the Bengals right now, is I don't think they're Super Bowl ready. Yes, they're always going to be a playoff team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I'm already past that. And whether or not you think that's a unrealistic expectation, I mean, we can debate that. But like we just mentioned when we kicked off this segment, there's a little time window here of grace I'm giving this team to figure it out. But it's not a very large window. And we already know after the 5th year that things don't usually work out for teams. So that's why I'm super hard on this team, is because – yes, I think they're good. Do I think they're Super Bowl worthy? I don't think so. I don't think they're that good just yet. Now, a lot of that can change with the draft, and it depends on who gets cut later on in training camps and stuff.
I was going to ask you, if it's up to you, we know Reed's opinion. If it was up to you, Reed's pretty much going to say, no matter who we draft, he's going to spin it like it's going to be the greatest pick in the world.
Right.
Who do you think the Bengals need to draft? First pick, 18th pick.
Well, I've had
position, I should say.
I've had this debate with Reed to a certain extent. I know he's not super big into the draft conversation, getting into the players and whatnot. But when you look at the way the board is falling, the Bengals would be either stuck with offensive tackle 5 or 6, which I'm not interested in that. All those players got flaws. Or possibly the best corner in the draft, possibly the best defensive tackle in the draft, possibly the best edge rusher in the draft. I wouldn't even be all that mad about that. I know people have some gripes about that because of Miles Murphy, but I'll never say no to more pass rush. I won't.
Can I ask a fun one?
Yeah, what's up?
Nobody's going to – if Brock Bowers were to somehow fall to 18, do you draft him? Not necessarily a need right away, but obviously Mike Gesicki can't stay here forever.
Yeah, I do.
You would take him?
I would take him.
You would take tight end?
Yeah, I would. I think that he's not a traditional tight end. He's not your he's more like the Travis Kelce role, and people think tight end when I say that, but he's not really a tight end. He's not putting his hand in the dirt and blocking guys. He's not your Mark Andrews. He's not your San Francisco Kittle. He's not that, but he is a weapon. He is someone that knows how to attack coverages. He's someone that is great in the slot. And I think that makes him a very, very valuable prospect.
Is this the first year? Because we could sit here and debate till what's the term? Till the
sun burns out.
Till the sun burns out, or till someone comes home. I can't remember.
Till the
phrasing.
lawnmower man starts his engine.
That's right. Which will be a long, long time. Here's the thing. If Joe Burrow plays at an elite level, then this team's going to be have a puncher's chance to win football games that are meaningful towards the end of the season. It's as simple as that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that they have to win a Super Bowl, but I will say this. I think that the biggest, if you are a Bengals fan, I think the biggest area of concern has to be the fact that Joe Burrow has to stay on the field, 1, but 2, also has to play at a high level. And you don't know if you don't know if you're going to get either.
Yeah.
I know everyone's going to, and listen, you can take the very positive spin approach to this and say, look what they did to the 49ers, right? Look how good that they looked against the 49ers. You're just bypassing a few of the other weeks, and you're just assuming that that's what you're going to get each and every time, which is fair. That might be the case. But don't you think that a lot of this all depends on that more than anything else? I think that's a very obvious statement to make. But sometimes I don't think it should get lost on us.
Honestly, about to fire back here, so be ready. Oh. I think this is a cop-out answer. Yes, obviously, you're probably not going to go very far without your elite quarterback, but the Eagles did it. They had a spectacular defense. I know that's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, but sometimes you need to get a little lucky. You need a Nick Foles in your backfield to be able to carry your team, get through the Super Bowl, and beat one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. That's what I'm looking for on a team. Can I make it best as possible, as humanly possible? So in case if something were to happen like that we have a guy in our backfield that can at least win you ball games, which we saw is very a real possibility on this Bengals team. We went 9-8. We thought our season was done. We were talking about tanking to get like the 5th pick in the draft. Like,
that's more than fair. I think that's actually a very fair statement that you make, because last year, could you say that the quarterback was the reason that the Bengals didn't get to where they ultimately wanted to go? And I know people are going to think I'm just saying this because I was obviously on the Browning bandwagon from the very get-go. I don't think that's the case, though. I think that the reason the Bengals obviously fell short was because of the opposite side of the football, and their defense was relatively atrocious for most of the year. And you find yourself in a position where, unfortunately, Joe Burrow's not going to fix that. So I think you're right, but I do think it's also fair to say that when they have Joe Burrow, I mentioned the rub-off effect of Elliott to you. Maybe there's a rub-off effect that you have your star quarterback. Maybe there's a rub-off effect that you guys, I don't want to say you play harder. You should be a professional. You should play as hard as you can every single time you step on the field. But that might not be the case.
And I would also like to point out one other thing, too. You look at Tom Brady and his Super Bowl runs, and even right now with Patrick Mahomes winning his first 2 Super Bowls with one of the most historic offenses of all time, right? With Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce as Hall of Fame players. He won his last Super Bowl because of his defense, getting a stop in overtime, getting him the ball back after they kicked the field goal for him to go down and score a touchdown. Yes, you have to have that quarterback. Same thing with Tom Brady. If he doesn't have those defenses, if you don't have that other part of your team, those quarterbacks are not going to be set up for success. And yes, it takes a guy like Joe Burrow to be able to do that. We have that part figured out. I can't say the same about the defense.
I'm going to throw out some hypotheticals that maybe aren't fair, but do you think that this is the year? I've always wondered from the outside looking in when the honeymoon phase wears off a little bit with Joe Burrow, because at some point it's going to happen, right? I mean, if Joe Burrow, if he plays great his entire career, never struggles or never falls short in the postseason, then certainly, by all stretch of the imagination, nobody will ever kind of bat an eye towards him. But I do wonder if is this the first time that really going into a season that the expectations, and I know they were high last season, no doubt about it, but you also felt like they kind of got they had a mulligan still left in the pocket per se because of the success they had early on. They were ahead of schedule, quote unquote. But I do think now, going into year 5, Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, which is the kind of the way the NFL works, right? You have the head coach and the quarterback. They get all the credit. They get all the blame. Fair or unfair, that's the way it's going to go. Do you think that this is the year where it's make or break from the standpoint of at least achieving the expectations or overachieving them? I'm not saying they need to win the Super Bowl, but let's just say they don't make the postseason again. Like, it's going to get hot around here, yes?
That would be utter disaster if they don't make the postseason again.
But you can make the case, though. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be a hater, but I'm saying you can make the case they play in a division that's very, very competitive. Very good.
I agree.
You can make the case they're going to finish third in their league, or in their division, excuse me.
Yeah, and they had 3 teams make it to the postseason, almost 4. I mean, for me, it's make it to the postseason, win a game. You got to be at least competing in the playoffs, right? That's my expectation. And whether or not, like I said before, we can argue about expectations and whether or not they're too high for the Bengals. I don't think anyone's really going to push back when I say they should be expecting to win a playoff game, like especially a home playoff game. I think that's also in the cards for them as well. Now, you look at the AFC North, like you said, and it's really, really tough. The Ravens lost a lot of key pieces on defense. Steelers are who they are. I think that we'll see a lot more of who they truly are when Russell Wilson starts to play quarterback. Because I am a little scared. I'm more scared of the Steelers than I am the Ravens at the current moment. And then the Browns. And I don't know what that will look like. I still don't have a whole lot of faith in Watson, but I know that you're pretty high on the Browns. I think you could argue that team is overlooked a lot.
Yeah, their window's closing, though. Their window's closing. Their window is damn near towards the end. But they do have an unbelievable – I mean, they have a very good football team. They just need a quarterback. And they went out and paid $1 billion for a quarterback, which is crazy. I mean, they try to fill the void that they have. But unfortunately for them, they got a guy that unfortunately probably hadn't made the best life decisions in his life. And you couple that in the fact that he has not been a very good football player the last few years.
The way I think about it is if Joe Burrow is that dude, if he's the Mahomes, the Allens, you got to take care of the guys in your division. You got to win these ball games. You got to be winning playoff games. That was what it boils down to.
All right, we have a mailbag coming up right after this on 1410 Wing AM, and I have no idea what's in store. And neither, I guarantee you, do you, because Elliot Rearing just got it in the mail. Can't wait to see what it is right after this on 1410 Wing AM. All right, welcome back in. Off the bench. Off the bench.
OTB.
Presented by OTB.
The final segment.
The final segment on this lovely April 16th, Tuesday edition. And as always, it's presented by United Dairy Farmers. Shout out to them, UDF. Big. You know what I'm going to do today? Actually, as soon as I get off the show, this isn't a joke. This is not a joke. This is a fact. I've always gotten milkshakes from there.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to go get a malt right after this and just give it a shot.
I like that.
I don't. What is the difference between a malt and a milkshake? I should know this. Is it something with powder, right? powder versus ice cream, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Is that right?
I think that's right.
In the chat, maybe they can let me know if that's actually a fact or not. I'm sure people listening on the radio right now are absolutely disgusted that I don't know what the difference between a milkshake and a malt is. But today, you know what? I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out. I'm going to go snag one of those.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy it. Probably accidentally grab a donut while I'm in there because they're always like right there in front of your face when you walk in. And then instantly regret it, probably,
Immediately.
Not immediately. I'll enjoy it, but after about 15 minutes, I might regret the fact that I ate a donut right before lunch. But you know what? That's how it goes.
And by the way, speaking of UDF, I do have a very interesting Bengals-related UDF.
Wow. What's that mean?
Or cherry on top, excuse me. I said
Yeah, that's
UDF,
okay.
I said cherry on top.
Yes.
I do have an interesting cherry. It's not a video or anything, but that's for later. I just want to mention it that we will be talking about it. But we do have a mailbag. I got a mailbag this morning, so let me pull up my mailbag here. It's under the desk. There it is. We do have that's right. For the radio, folks, we've only done this once on the radio before. So if you don't know what happens here, little children from all around the world, they send letters and ask the Chatterbox Sports crew questions regarding various sports topics. So that's what's going to happen today. That's what's going to happen right now. And we do have a funny little sounder here that Casey and I put together. And here we go.
We just got a letter. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. I wonder who it's from.
Wow. Thank you. And today's letter, I was searching all, and I found the right one. Everybody was talking about Caitlin Clark and the WNBA draft, so I picked one that had a correspondence to that very topic. So here we go. Today we have a letter from little Hillary from Mrs. Clinton's class. Now, Hillary is the starting shooting guard for Our Lady the Visitation Vikings 5th grade girls team. Cane's Chicken Fingers, no free ads. She wanted to mention that, is paying $17 million in her NIL funds. It's the largest NIL deal for a 5th grader ever. Could have been more, but she missed an email from Starbucks. Now, Hillary wants to know, should she dream to play in the WNBA, knowing that she can make 10 times as much money playing amateur athletics with the NIL? Or should she hope to change the sport as we know it and go to the WNBA? Thank you, little Hillary.
Well, I think this is the clear case that NIL is nothing more than name, image, and likeness, right? That's what it stands for, and that basically is allowing you the ability to go out and provide sponsorships or activations for businesses or whatever it may be that you would like to do to be able to get your name in front of a brand that then they would pay you for. Simple as that. That's what NIL is. And you know what the cool thing is in the world? Is that eventually you don't even need permission to use NIL.
Correct.
That's just a part of life. You get that to your disposal in this great country all the time. So, for her sake, this whole NIL thing, she could have stayed at Iowa and made a ton of money in NIL. She could do that now. The only thing is, will she still garner the attention she did when she was at Iowa while she's in the WNBA? And that is something we will all have to find out, sit around and wait to see. I don't know the answer. I do think that there was no doubt in my mind at the very beginning there will be this honeymoon phase with the WNBA. People are going to watch her play. The biggest fear that I would have if I'm that league, quite frankly, is that Diana Taurasi is going to be correct in what she is assessing. That is that Caitlin Clark is going to be a good player, but she's not going to be the player that she's been in college. She's not going to be as a big of a scoring threat as she once was because she has WNBA players, Gardner, locking her up, putting the clamps on, as they say. And at the end of all of it, we'll find out what happens. But I know this. It seems like we always, again, try to make something out of nothing when it comes to women athletics more times than not. And now we're going to have this age-old debate if she's underpaid. She's underpaid. She's going to be underpaid in the WNBA. There's no doubt about it. She's going to be, this first year or two, underpaid based off of what she's going to bring to that league. But that's kind of what the WNBA is as a whole, aren't they? They're subsidized from another league. So it's kind of a weird situation, isn't it? You have one league that subsidizes another league so they exist in the first place, and then you have that same league who's probably going to get subsidized a little bit off of Caitlin Clark because Caitlin Clark is going to be a superstar for at least a short amount of time. Now, if she's a superstar over the long haul, very similar to maybe the Tiger effect in golf. Rising tide raises all ships. That is what Caitlin Clark could possibly do for the WNBA. I'm just not going to buy it. I know this isn't a buy or sell, but I'm not going to buy the idea that there's going to be a significant interest in the WNBA for a long period of time.
I think here's what I think. And I have a couple stats. And for those of you who don't know the contract, it goes as this: 4 years, $338,000 total. In 2024, she will be making $76,000. In 25, $78,000. In 2026, $85,000. And in the year 2027, she'll be making nearly $100,000 at $97,580. She's vastly underpaid. Vastly underpaid. And I do think this is the beginning. I disagree with Trace a little bit. I think there's a chance that the WNBA obviously will never be as big as the NBA. I don't see a world where that happens. But I do think there's going to be a shift where people were like, okay, who's playing on the Indiana Fever? Caitlin Clark? That's a name I know. That's a name I'll watch. And if you're a degenerate gambler, you'll gamble on it. It entices you to interact with it more. Caitlin Clark's jersey for the Indiana Fever has sold out in every size up until XXL. Extra small to XXL, it's sold out completely last night. So I do think this is the beginning of an era in women's sports or especially the WNBA, because the WNBA has been criticized for a long time, specifically in regards to the pay and how a lot of these women have to go overseas, a la Brittany Griner, to make real money. You play in China, you play in Russia.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you don't bring in revenue.
Correct, and that's fair. I think this is the shift in women's basketball where there will be revenue brought in, and if not on TV side, at least in the games. I think the Indiana Fever will be sold out every game. If not sold out, it'll be damn close. And I think that'll be because of Caitlin Clark. And because of that, I think Caitlin Clark should be probably paid a hell of a lot more than $76,000 a year.
And you know what?
They will break every record, attendance record in the world. Every single game they play this season will break a new attendance record in the WNBA. And that is because of Caitlin Clark, and I think that continues. I don't think that goes away unless Caitlin Clark somehow becomes bad at basketball.
I'm not disagreeing with the fact that $76,000 is an underpayment for Caitlin Clark, but the reality is that the dynamics and the revenue from that league have put out a very specific set of metrics and numbers that are going to align with those numbers traditionally. But there's always an outlier. There's always an exception to the rule. Caitlin Clark is that exception to the rule. And you know what? For all intents and purposes, she's going to make plenty of money outside of her salary in the WNBA.
Correct.
Okay, let's be very clear. She's going to make probably a very considerable amount of money. However, for the league standpoint, she signed up to play for this league.
She did.
I'm trying to toe this fine line here of saying you signed up for it, you knew what you were getting yourself into, and I know that that's the only, quite honestly, league she had available to her for the most part. You know, it's similar to saying, well, if you don't like the NCAA rules, then don't play in the NCAA. It's kind of like, well, that's kind of tough considering it's the only place you can really go if you're somewhat serious about sports. Having said all that, this is what it is. And as I've said before, there would not be a WNBA if there wasn't subsidized income coming from somewhere else, which is obviously the NBA. And you know what? Caitlin Clark, and I think she's smart enough to realize that. I think she understands the dynamics that are at play here. And I think she also will probably say, you know what? I'm very fortunate. I think she's going to take the stance that I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed to be able to get all this NIL money, for lack of a better term, endorsement money. And I'm also going to be one of the most popular players in the sport. I'm going to lift this game up, and I'm okay with being underpaid for a short amount of time. At some point, you'll be made whole if you sustain that over a period of time.
I commend her for doing it, and you are correct. She knew 100% that she wasn't going to get paid a lot of money. She knew that, and she decided, and that's kind of why in the letter, not the joke. The letters are always jokes, but I do think there's an aspect of legacy. I think this was a legacy move by Caitlin Clark. She's going to try to be essentially the Steph Curry or I don't know, the LeBron James. I know you can't compare those two, but name recognition wise, she's going to try to change that league entirely. Because the WNBA, there is a certain connotation that it doesn't make any money whatsoever, and that might be pretty much true. But I do think she's trying to change that, and that's what I give her a hell of a lot of credit for. She could have stayed back. She made more money at Iowa. And probably competed for a national championship watched by a hell of a lot more people that will watch the
100%.
WNBA. But she actively chose to do that and to perhaps change not only the legacy of herself and grow that legacy, but help the legacy of the WNBA, which up until this point, and I say this with love and respect, doesn't probably have a large legacy at this point.
Can I say something as well that people are going to – this is where people don't like me, and that's fine. I just say what I feel is right, and I'm going to say it anyways. I think that Caitlin Clark reached her ceiling in college. I know Everett's going to come in the chat and be like, Joe Burrow, he hasn't met his ceiling yet, or whatever he was making fun of me about when I was suggesting that if you're Joe Burrow, under any circumstance in the world, you'd be an idiot not to get a deal done before you go into another season of play after what you just did for the Cincinnati Bengals franchise. You would have been an idiot. And you know what? It turns out he was smart. He was right. He signed a mega deal. Turns out he ended up getting hurt, and now he's got 2 different injuries that he's had since he signed that deal, by the way, Everett. And I think I was right on that. So here's what I'm going to say again. I think that Caitlin Clark at Iowa was as high of a peak that you could get. You can't get any higher than that. It's impossible. The only thing that could have happened is she either, 1, get hurt, or 2, she doesn't play anywhere near as well as she's played the previous seasons. Now, you could say that's a foregone conclusion. She's 100% going to play that well, but that's not a foregone conclusion when you're playing as well as she was. No chance. So she can strike while the iron's hot, move on. Because ultimately, yes, you're going to get eyeballs next year, but if you don't play as well as you have in the past, then there's going to be this notion of, Caitlin Clark's a little overrated, and then you got to deal with the fact that you're super old in college. That's another thing that you got to deal with. 100%. So I'm okay with her leaving, and I'm okay with her trying to capitalize on what she has right now, which is a huge opportunity to raise the game of women's basketball at a professional level, and we'll see if she does it. I'm not sold on the idea of it, but she knows. And also, Fred chimed in the chat and said she got drafted there. She didn't choose to go there. She chose to go in the WNBA draft. She quite literally entered her name into the draft. This isn't like back, when they're drafting youngsters to go fight in world wars here, where you don't have a choice, obviously, unless you dodged it. But the point is that you chose to enter your name in the draft. You know where you're going to get drafted, and that's all that happened. So to act like she didn't choose to do it, she chose to do it. If it was all about money to her, right, she would have signed with the big 3.
Correct.
And she didn't, so kudos to her. She wants to raise the women's game, and I, for all intents and purposes, hope that she does. We will find out. And it's all going to come down to what CJ said as well in the chat. He said that it's not going to bring in revenue unless they find a TV deal. So that's another thing. Will they find a TV deal in the WNBA that makes sense? Can they find a time slot where people will watch? Maybe like Saturday mornings, as you suggested before?
Saturday morning is a great time slot. Again, we're missing the first half, but that second half, boy, that'll be exciting.
Right.
But that's it. That's all I had there. And before we go, I do have a cherry on top. Casey, do. So this is a cherry on top relating to the Cincinnati Bengals. And this was on this day, on this week, 25 years ago. Presented by United Dairy Farmers. So on this week, 25 years ago, the Saints make an offer that the Bengals refused in an attempt to trade up for running back Ricky Williams. The Saints offered all 6 of their picks this year, including the number 12 overall selection, first-round picks in the 2000 and 2001, and a second-round pick in 2002. That is 9 picks. That is 9 picks for the potential of Ricky Williams. That is a Herschel Walker type of trade. How about that?
Achilles Smith. I can't believe that came up on the show, and I didn't even bring it up to you. And I seen the same thing this morning. I didn't even think I said it to Casey, and you found the same thing. Kind of a wild situation, right?
Preposterous.
It goes to show you. It does go to show you one thing as we wrap up this show of Off the Bench here on 1410 Wing AM is every single year there are some teams that just lose their brains when it comes to the draft, and they think that they have to have something, and they're willing to do something stupid. The question ultimately will come down to who will it be this year. It happens every single season, and we'll find out. The draft's an interesting thing. Speaking of which, the last final topic here, as we are on ESPN, I seen someone say that they were upset that Todd McShay and Mel Kiper, they're no longer together, I guess? They're no longer... I should probably know this.
I think McShay got let go.
Okay.
I think he was part of the layoffs.
There you go. Okay.
Did Kiper get laid off too?
No, I don't think so. So they don't have the banter back and forth. That's what it was. All right. Fair enough. You know what? They're gonna bring back Herb Street for the draft this year.
I hope not. I've had enough of Herb Street. I mean, he's just. This is.
Are you tired of him being?
Hey, this isn't a bit, but this is something that's relatively kind of like a funny
him and his dog.
poll question of the day.
Him
Ready?
and Ben the dog.
Poll question of the day. If Herb Street is on the air, does go to the draft, does his dog go with him? Do you think he will make an appearance? Yes or no?
We'll let the chat stew on that one.
We will. All right. Final parting thoughts here as we head into the not the sunset because it's the middle of the day, but we are going to head our way to United Dairy Farmers for a malt beverage.
That's
for
right.
Myself and Kinner and Kev are up next. They'll have that, and they have some fun topics today.
Correct.
I'm sure they'll be all over it. But the only thing I have to say to you, I appreciate you watching this show. Thanks for listening. Say something nice about us if you can. If you can muster that up, spread the word about our show. Have some exciting news. Not all the way done yet. You know, you gotta let the ink dry on the paper per se. Trying to sign some agreements here relatively soon that are meaningful. That are meaningful around here, and it would be a big deal for us to get. So we'll find out. Don't want to jinx it, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. I guess I'll tease that for the next show. So we'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Take care. All right, let's just see what the poll question of the day rounds up to. I'm gonna say overwhelmingly, yeah, the dog's gonna be there. It's become a part of his deal now.
Yeah, can't go anywhere without Herb Street without Ben the dog.
Ben the dog. It does feel
What a show.
It does feel kind of tired, and I love the dog. I have nothing
love
against the
dogs.
dog, right?
I love dogs.
Why?
God, I love dogs.
But it does seem a little tired, right?
But it's just like, hey, can we be serious for like a second? Can you mind not bringing up your dog to the booth with Al? Can we not do that like one time? But no, he has to do it. He has to do it. And shout out to Herbie. He hates non-power fives. Florida State shouldn't have been in because a player got hurt.
This kind of feels like the Taylor Swift thing. I won't lie.
It does.
I mean,
It does.
Oh, you think so? You're defending it.
I'm defending the dog. I mean, how much airtime does it really get? Like 5 seconds, maybe. Come on.
I don't have a problem with the dog. I have no problem with the dog. In fact, I love the dog. The only issue I have, and this is where maybe it's, you know what? Maybe there's some jealousy involved here. I don't know, if we're being honest. But there's something about it to me that I don't love when people utilize other things to garner attention that aren't really, like, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. Like, it just seems like it's a ploy to get attention, and I don't really love that.
You have a dog.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very similar dog to him, and I could bring him in every day, and we could,
Just look
make
at
a
him.
big deal about it.
Yeah, just look at him.
Maybe we should. Maybe
Where
that'll
does
be
your
good
dog
for the
sleep?
numbers.
Where does your dog sleep?
He sleeps in like a little dog bed on the floor.
Interesting.
Why?
I was just wondering. Some people don't let the dog sleep in the bed or what have you.
Well, no, he does from time to time sleep in the bed, but usually he gets kicked out because he just
He's too big.
yeah, and he doesn't really care about your space. The whole personal space thing, he's not worried about that. So from time to time, I like to sleep with a little personal space.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. By the way, I was a little concerned. No Reed today, and it was, it's a Tuesday when there's not a ton of sports going on. I thought we were going to have a slow day. I thought we carried that show pretty well today.
Yeah, are you proud of yourself?
I am. How about a
All
round
right.
of applause?
Good job, Elliot. Nice job.
How about a round of
Elliot.
Casey?
Really
Can I get a round of
good.
applause, please?
You guys did a good job.
You did a great job.
To be honest with you, I was pulling something out my ass
Yeah?
since we're not on the radio anymore. Talking about the Jesse Bates thing. It's a good thing you guys steered it a different direction.
Yeah.
Because that was going to be very tired.
The window is our career. The window is the Bengals' career.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do think that there's some relatively honest conversation around like what the real true expectation should be for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like it's a hard league, man.
Yeah.
It's a hard league. And I don't know why that's so crazy to say. I just think that having expectations to get to a Super Bowl seems so ridiculously far-fetched that you're ultimately going to be disappointed a significant amount of the time. And I think that there's a vast majority of this fan base that truly feels like they deserve or they should be in the Super Bowl this coming year. And I guess like the crazy part is like what have the Bengals done that have made you what have they done that made you think that they like should be there? I don't know. Maybe I'm being a hater. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Well, I think the answer to that question is they feel robbed of a season last year. Prior to that, you go to the AFC Championship. You're one play away from another Super Bowl potentially, and then you're one play away from winning a Super Bowl. So,
but that's one season.
That's 2 seasons, though. What do you mean?
Okay, so but I would argue, okay, you're talking about the year in which they were theoretically one play away in the NFC Championship game, but you could flip that on its head and do the same thing the opposite way. They were a super fluky play away from losing to the Ravens in the first round at home. Yeah,
but I guess what I'm saying is like they don't, because of last season feeling like it was a wasted season. You don't know if there was like we don't know if there wasn't a very good finality to the run. Yeah, it seemed like it was it does seem like it wasn't there was a situation where you didn't get to see like the real true plot play out. So now you got to wait like you do
one more year.
Yeah, you do it 3 times in a row and it's like, okay, this is actually here to stay.
Right.
But now you don't know going into year 5 or whatever it is now. So
what's real? I mean, what is Zach Taylor's realistic expectation? Like, if they were to not make the playoffs, I still just don't think that he gets let go.
Well, the Bengals won't. The Bengals don't fire coaches, and that's unfortunate because at some point you're just not it. And I feel like after 5 years, I don't know what your. I guess the question is, what's the expectation when you're a head coach? Is it always to win a Super Bowl?
Well, don't you think it's fair to say that out of the 5 years, 2 of them, almost half the seasons, 2 of them, they're washes. His first year was a wash.
First year's a wash,
and then last year's a little bit of a wash.
I agree. I think that's fair. So, what do you think? 2 more years?
I think last year was actually more beneficial to him than
that is very much the case because I think when Joe Burrow went down, there was a very, very clear argument that we're about to see what Zach Taylor is actually worth now. Turns out they did all right.
Yeah.
Now, Browning, I don't know how good he ultimately. I don't think Browning's a guy that you're going to be like, oh, let's go to the Super Bowl with. But I think he's more than capable. Like I was arguing before, he's more than capable of getting you by for a couple weeks.
I think it was a double-edged sword. How about that? Because it was good to see him be successful, but now that we've seen him be successful with lesser talent, it's almost like we're expecting him to outperform that.
Did his success? This is where people hate my guts, and I'm not trying to be a troll. This is a genuine question. Does Zach Taylor's success and Jake Browning's success last year put more pressure on Joe Burrow now?
No.
It doesn't.
I don't think Joe Burrow has any more added pressure. He's already one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He already knows everybody's looking at him, coming after him. That doesn't. Yeah. Jake Browning doesn't change anything.
The pressure didn't change. It's always been the same. That there's an expectation that he should make it back to the Super Bowl. I'd
argue that the pressure is kind of taken off his shoulders a little bit, knowing that Jake Browning can somewhat play quarterback. And by the way, shout out to you. You were right about it. I was wrong about it. You were right about it. And having a decent, serviceable backup quarterback in this league is very important. I didn't think we had one, and Jake Browning certainly proved that he was, and I was wrong. You and Reed both were right. Reed was on the Drew Sample train all season long. Drew Sample gets signed again. I don't know what you're getting with Drew Sample, but last year scoring multiple touchdowns.
Tight end 1.
So good for you guys. You guys went on a victory train. That was good.
I don't think I won anything last year, to be honest. Outside the fact that I do have a lot of hope going into the season with the Packers, though. Like I actually think Jordan Love's going to be a guy, which is great. That's fantastic. It just I don't know how the Packers just. I don't want to proclaim that Jordan Love's going to be as good as obviously the previous 2 quarterbacks because that's very, very high praise. The only thing though at this point is that you do think you know the heat checks that guys take when they're in the middle of a game and they're just on fire and you just I think that's where Packer fans are with quarterbacks. It's just like at this point it's like
just everyone you get.
He's going to be another Hall of Famer.
Oh come on.
I mean that's the notion that you get. That's the notion that you get. I like a lot of the actions. I like what I see.
Final poll results 81%.
Yeah, dog would be there. We all know that, and I think it will be. We'll find out. It's gonna be a a damning situation if Herbie plays this out too far, though. I really don't want to. I really don't want this dog to be.
He's got like 10 of them too. I saw a picture. He's got like legit 6 dogs, 6 golden retrievers.
Well, then they'll just flop them out. Once one's not capable of going on the road anymore, it'll be the next man up.
Yes, that certainly will be it. Next man up. I wish that applied to Florida State. I wish he would have used that logic for Florida State.
All right, that's the best way to end this show. I mean, listen, that was gold.
Thank you.
That was gold. That whole little like 2-minute random non-serious banter was pure gold. That's why sometimes I just wish there was like cameras in the studio. The only issue is that we would get ourselves in trouble because we'd say some stuff that people would think that we're being mean about, and then that wouldn't go over that well. But I do think that there's more funny banter like that than there isn't. So maybe at some point, who knows? Maybe we install some permanent cameras in here and we put it on members only. It's like a 24. YouTube wouldn't even let us do that, would
We're
they?
just like lab rats.
Yeah, we would be just lab rats. We'll just put 8 hours every day. It's gonna be a live stream from somewhere inside of here, mic'd up.
Yeah, let's do that.
It seems like a decent idea.
We had Jeremiah out there in the outside. We'll just have him stand there all day.
Yeah.
Just put a
Well, he
camera
was
on
up there in the
face.
tower all day. All right. This was a lovely Tuesday edition of Off the Bench. You guys are the best. We appreciate you. Thank you for all the members that continue to support us. Our membership is actually doing all right. It's growing.
It is growing. Are
It
we doing
is growing.
Are we going to do a Chatterbox Reds night again?
growing.
People kept asking about
I know
that.
they're asking. Listen, I mean, if we're being honest.
We don't have to do it the way we did it last time. We don't have to rent out the boat.
Correct. That's where we're at. It's like, in order for us to get to a spot where we do Chatterbox Red Night, we can't lose money. I'm all for breaking even. We can't lose money. Not to say we lost a ton of money last year, but you have to buy like whatever 125 tickets or 150
that's
tickets.
a lot of people.
It's a lot of people on a random night. So I don't know. I'll look into it. The only thing would be
Because schools do it up there in the nosebleeds.
Well, that's the thing. Like, do we want to do it to where it's somewhere in the park, or would we rather just try to find a place that maybe it's a little tighter knit group? There's only 40 tickets and it's a suite or something like that. But then it's like, how much are the tickets going to cost?
We'll look into it.
We will look into it. I'll make that your job.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
40
Elliot's
people.
on the clock
40
for
people.
Chatterbox Reds night. All right, well, you enjoy your day. It's a lovely day. Another sunny day out here in Southwest Ohio. Go enjoy it. Take care, everybody.